Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Fixing Football podcast. I'm here with Liam O'Meara. Liam, Happy New Year, mate.
Happy New Year, Martin. How was your New Year?
New Year was good. I was DJing in Birmingham, and it was an actual good night. It started off slow, but it was a good night. What about you?
I was out in Newton-le-Lowes, where my in-laws live, went for a nice curry, and then we just stayed in, really, watched a hootenanny, like I do every year. It was a good night.
Hootenanny. I DJ'd a hootenanny once. So I was just a regular New Year's Eve party at a hotel, and then all of a sudden a giant Scottish man with a bagpipe came out and executed a haggis in front of everyone, which is one of the most bizarre things I've ever been a part of.
Weird part of the world.
New Year's resolutions. Have you got one?
Not as such, really. I'm very much trying to be more productive. I wouldn't say I've got a dead set New Year's resolution, but I'm trying to be a lot more productive with my time in everything that I do, really. Something I picked up from work, and it's been really good. So I want to really sort of hone in on that. What about you? Have you got any sort of firm predictions, resolutions?
Yeah. Resolutions. I've always sort of turned my nose up at resolutions because I think there's a lot of this new year, new me bollocks that gets twisted around. But I do like the fresh start element of a 1st of January, turning the page, whatever. So general health, that needs improvement. I've given the dad bod a good run for a while now, and it needs to get back on track. I joined the cold plunge crew, so I'm getting invested in that. Wealth, time to focus on my personal finances a little bit. I'm going to crack on with that. That can never hurt.
So hang on. So is the cold plunge, when I saw you bought the cold plunge, I assumed you were recovering from a certain exercise maybe, but are you doing the Wim Hof cold showers immune system thing?
Yeah. I've done a cold shower thing a few times, but after a bit of research that it doesn't come close to the effects of a cold plunge. So I've been treated to one for Christmas, and that's going to be my new daily routine. Build myself up to 3 minutes at the neck, I think is the sort of optimal time that you need to do that every day. And in general, it just reduces inflation, which is the silent killer.
Inflation?
Inflammation is what I'm going to say.
No, I'm a believer of it. It really boosts your immune system as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's loads of benefits to it, which I was naive to because I'm not a fan of the cold.
Do you know what will help as well? Obviously, Luke is unwell today. I hope you're feeling better, Luke. But Luke's a big fizzy pop drinker. So if you cut down on that as well, that might help as well with your immune system.
Well, that's going to come later in the month. I'm not quite there yet, ready to give up the Monster Energy. Or other energy drinks are available, but that one's my favourite right now. So I'll get to that. I'm going to do... So yeah, just a bit more looking after general health, wealth, and cracking on with the podcast to try and make a success of this thing.
Well, yeah, this time next year we could be the Saudi Arabia Premier League podcast, couldn't we?
Well, that's the plan, and we're open to any offers starting at 9 figures. Because they seem to be chucking money away willy-nilly. So I think...
Or 3 figures.
3 figures would be fine. So, Christmas period. We're coming to the end of it now. FA Cup this weekend coming up. So, Bolton are back in the 3rd round. Looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to Bolton being in it.
Yeah, a really good game as well. Luton, who are on the up a little bit, bless them. Showing a bit of fight. A couple of signings in Barkley and Townsend that made a real difference to them. So good for them. And that's what we wanted, isn't it? That was exactly what we said to do.
Exactly what we wanted. We wanted the plucky little club, whoever it was, to give it a go. And, they've brought them guys in. Barkley was unbelievable against Arsenal. I know that we ended up coming away with the win and yay for us and all that. But Barkley was like a young Steven Gerrard. He was absolutely bossed the game. It was good to see because he's always been a player in there. Like I said, Townsend. I think Townsend's only on a 3-month contract, so
that's right.
I guess we'll see. I think the fans. He's really warm to it. The fans are happy with him. I mean, yeah, good for them. Yeah. I'd love them to stay up. I don't think anyone still sees it, even though they've got a couple of points on the board now. But
yeah, even if they don't stay up, giving it a go. That's enough. Like that.
Yeah.
If I was a Luton fan, for me that would be enough. We were never saying they had to invest and pay the world to do it, but give yourself a little bit of a go. Like,
definitely.
But anyway, back to Bolton and that game. The very fact that Luton are now in a relegation battle in a positive way has meant that I think they were more likely to rest players for that game on Sunday.
Their upturn in form or performances is probably going to benefit you in this match because they're gonna, and it's at Luton as well, isn't it?
It's at Luton, yeah. And I think we'll give this a real go. Ian Evatt does like to showcase Bolton on the big stage whenever he can, and the prize money will make a difference to what we're trying to do. We are trying to build a sustainable club, but to do that, we need revenue. We need as much prize money as possible. We'll be taking the Bristol Street Motors Trophy seriously on the following Tuesday. So yeah, I fancy us to get an upset.
I hope so. I mean, this is going to overlap a little bit into the second half of this week's episode, but could a win against Luton ensure that Dion Charles stays at Bolton for the rest of the season?
I don't know, if I'm being honest with that one. I think that the struggle is, from a footballing perspective, you can make a case for staying for him. You could say, you're in a team that's playing really well, built around you, likely to be in the Championship next year. More than a half chance of that happening, I would say. So the only issue is that a move to the Championship and one of those established Championship clubs that are showing interest, I believe Middlesbrough now as well are interested. That is going to seriously affect his earnings. He could triple his wages with that kind of move. We had something similar a few years back with Gary Medine.
I was literally just thinking of Gary Medine. He went to Cardiff, didn't he?
Yeah, and he tripled his wages. So, that's a huge thing for someone in Football League levels. So I wouldn't begrudge the move. I think the money being spoken about is 2.5 to 3 million. It's sort of in that range, and I would say that's pretty good return, to be honest. So we just need to make sure if it does happen, we have something lined up because we know it's on the radar. It is a possibility. So we need to start planning if we're not already doing. I know that. Go on.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, 3 million, I would say, is a bargain for a guy who's scoring at international level. For someone in the Football League who's scoring at international level. So yeah. I would hope, if Bolton got 5-6 million for him,
it won't happen. It's likely to be around that those sorts of figures that we're talking. But that's a lot of money at our level. So fingers crossed we see what happens. But everyone's wanting to buy goals at the moment at all levels, and that brings us to Arsenal, Martin. Do you need a striker?
It's looking that way. It's we've had a pretty terrible Christmas period. It started off with the loss at Villa, and then Villa were on a great run then. Then we had the win against Brighton, draw against Liverpool. No. Yes, it was a draw against Liverpool. And then 2 losses back-to-back with West Ham and... Who did we play yesterday? Fulham. Jesus Christ. The West Ham game, I've not seen a more dominant loss in my life. It was ridiculous. But as you rightly pointed out, we couldn't put it in the net. We had 30 shots. I think a record number of touches in an opponent's box.
But here's what I would say about what I thought with the West Ham game. Did it not concern you that it seemed like you kind of played to West Ham's strengths in a sense? Like they were always going to come at you with set pieces, and it didn't seem to me like you'd had any plan for that. You look there to be shot at from my perspective. I don't know if you found that as well.
Yes, that is their strength on the counter and set pieces. But when you dominate the ball so much, the only way an opponent can do anything is generally on the counter or a set piece. It's the way City have come unstuck a few times this season. It's the way the great teams who have dominated the ball and the possession, it's the only way that they ever become unstuck. I'm not throwing us into the category of great teams, but we're definitely on the way, and that's the way we play. We dominate the ball as much as anyone. So, yes, that does play into their hands. For the amount of shots we concede a lot of goals. Our ratio of shots to goals conceded is pretty worrying.
I think there's an element of the quality of chances that get created on the counter-attack are generally better. That's why teams focus on transition. And transition's what I wanted to ask you again, because the key player for you in terms of transition is Zinchenko, isn't it? Because in possession, he's in centre mid, and out of possession, he's at left back. And my question to you is he good enough for either of them positions for a team that's going to win the league?
Well, the answer is no, because he isn't either of them positions. He is both of them positions. So my only counter to that is that he isn't a centre mid and he isn't a great left back, but he is great at doing this inverted role, and he is out of form, which is worrying because he is really key to the way he pushes up, and then we become a front five essentially.
Do you think it works, the inverted role?
Yes, and this was my argument of having Kieran Tierney in the side, is that if you want to uninvert, you put someone in who's so direct, very, quick, powerful, just gets the ball in the box, the traditional style left back. You have that option. And I feel like last season we should have used him a lot more. When this role becomes tied, and it looks like that's happening again. He's playing a lot of games. I think we've suffered with Tomiyasu and obviously during Timber's injury. I think a lot of our build-up play, looking back now, I think a lot of our play this season was based on Timber, and the fact that we've not been able to have him, we've reverted to type a little bit, and we're looking leggy. So I'm not too worried just yet about where we're going to end up at the end of the season, but there are some worrying signs on the hill, which if they are not corrected soon, I mean, we don't have a Premier League game for 3 weeks now, I think it's something like that. So them things need to be corrected. We need to have a freshen up. Whatever happens in the FA Cup versus Liverpool, that'll be whatever it'll be. If we win, great. If we don't, I don't think we're going to be too worried about it. I think it's important that we, freshen it up a little bit versus Liverpool, do whatever we need to do, and hopefully come out with a win. Hopefully, probably they're doing the same, and we do get the win because we're at home.
Oh yeah, it is Liverpool. I was going to ask. Completely forgot who you had in the cup. Yeah, Liverpool, isn't it?
Yeah. Again, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm not too worried, like I said, but going back to the original point, we need to start scoring. That's, it was an easiest goal versus Fulham, but the goals have really dried up. We're nowhere near what we were at last season in terms of we were sharing the goals around Jesus, Saka, Martinelli. They're all below what they were at this time last year.
What about Odegaard?
Same. He's we've scored less goals. We've still got the best defence in the league, and that has shot up a significant percentage, but the attack has fallen. And then when you're conceding silly goals like we are doing, it stands out a lot more. So I don't know where the solution is.
The solution's at Brentford. That's where the solution is.
Look, you might be right. I still stand by my original point a few weeks ago, is that I don't know if Ivan Toney's going to be the one, but he is a one. He would be a great asset. Now, whether he comes in and that means Jesus is sat on the bench, I don't know. I think Jesus is fantastic and he's very important to the way our team plays.
I think I've seen Solanke mentioned as well. What would your thoughts on that one be?
No, I think we would be overpaying for both, and I would rather overpay for Ivan Toney.
I agree with that. I also think that move's the last thing Solanke needs right now.
Yeah. Whether he might be looking for a place at the Euros, that might be on his mind. He's in great form, but
I think these strikers get obsessed with that, but they're not going to play. So I don't know why they worry about it so much. Like Watkins, Solanke, Calvert-Lewin, great, but you're not going to play.
Yeah. They're all praying for a Kane injury and no one else wants them there. So it doesn't matter. You might have to take 20 midfielders. Doesn't really matter. Right. So we're going to have a little break. We will get back onto Arsenal in a little bit, but we want to talk about the January transfer window opening today. And we're back. And we're joined by Scott, who's back. Happy New Year, Scott. You good?
Happy New Year, boys. Yeah, very, very well. How are you?
All good. We was talking in the first half about New Year's resolutions. Do you believe in them, and do you have one?
The concept is nice. I think that they, but it's nice in theory, not very good in practice. So I don't have any in particular. Just be better and richer than last year, I guess, is the only one that I've got.
That's pretty fair. So this half, Liam, I wanted to chat about January transfer window. I mean, we are the Fixing Football podcast. We're here to fix the nation's beloved clubs, provide some answers for people. So January transfer window's open. It's not usually a big spending time, and I think FFP's got a lot of people running scared. So I am hesitant to think that there's going to be significant action in this window. However, there's going to be some movements, and I think it's worth, one of the biggest names that's being mentioned at the moment is Kalvin Phillips, looking like, I think there were some clubs abroad linked, but Newcastle's looking like a potential destination.
Yeah, there's been quite a few. I think Juventus were the first to make their move, really. So I think Juventus is high on their list of potentials. I think for someone like Kalvin Phillips, I think the choice of next club is really important. He has to get this right for his own career. He's had two years essentially wasted because City wanted to spend 60 million to see how good he was in training, essentially, and decided that maybe he wasn't quite up to it. So picking his next club is vital. The loan move to Newcastle, I believe City are open to that as well. Which
seems like a good fit.
Yeah, they're very tired, aren't they? We hear that quite a lot about Newcastle.
Very tired.
The only tired team, but I think they get a lot of stick for that. But I think the biggest issue for Newcastle is because of injuries. The team selection's been very predictable. I think that's been a bigger problem for them than actually tired legs. I think the fact that you know their team before they pick it is a big problem in the Premier League. But Kalvin Phillips would obviously add a lot to that squad, and he's a high-energy player of the Bielsa ilk who will fit into a hard-working midfield. It seems to be sort of a good fit for him. Scott, what are your thoughts on Kalvin Phillips?
I think it's a tricky one with him because I think, like you said, the last 2 years have been wasted, and I guess now the next move will determine. We'll learn a lot about Kalvin Phillips in this as to where he wants to go, if he does go, because for all we know, he could be very happy sitting on that bench, taking his paycheck and moving on. I don't believe that, but we've seen it happen before. So I think Newcastle would be a good fit for him. I am a big fan of English players going abroad. I don't think enough of them do it. And I think I think it's a big reason why England haven't done as well at other tournaments is that our players are siloed in the Premier League a lot. And I don't think we get enough exposure to other leagues and other styles of play. So I would much prefer to see him go to Juventus because I think that would be better for his career. But I can definitely see him at Newcastle. I think he'd be a good fit for Eddie Howe's system. I think he would be an experienced head in that squad, in that team, which they need. Allegedly they've got the most injuries anyone's ever had, so they're probably more desperate for him than anyone. But I can see him there. But I personally would prefer to see him go abroad just to broaden his game a little bit.
Yeah, I think the Newcastle transfer works for everybody. And I think that could be a good fit. Pep's already said he's basically publicly apologised to him for signing him in the first place. So his career at Man City looks over. Whether he decides to take that now or see out his contract. Like I say, we'll find out about him. But he needs to play.
Yeah. If in a world where money's no object, I would like to see him at Everton. I think that would be the perfect place for him under Dyche at Everton, where he can essentially know he's going to play most weeks, become a real sort of hard-working centre, and a club that theoretically, if they negate their difficult patch that they're in now, is going to a brand new stadium and etc. So I that would be a good move for him as well. I wouldn't be surprised if Everton, I know they're a bit hamstrung on FFP, but maybe can try and make a loan move work with the numbers. That might be an option I think might open up.
Yeah, it's a good shout. Is there anyone else who needs to be on Newcastle's radar? I think Aaron Ramsdale's been mentioned as well. I would be very hesitant as an Arsenal fan to see him go anywhere else. But he needs
I don't understand this obsession with Aaron Ramsdale. He's terrible.
He isn't, and that's fine.
He is. He's awful. And if you're Newcastle, why would you look at Ramsdale when you've got the better goalkeeper, the more experienced goalkeeper already, and you're giving yourself an unnecessary headache for the near and foreseeable. I don't. If that is a legitimate link, I'm very surprised at it. I don't think it makes a lot of sense for anyone. For Arsenal to sell to someone who's now a rival, and for Newcastle to give themselves a headache that they don't need.
Yeah, I don't think if Ramsdale to Newcastle was to happen, that has to be a loan, doesn't it? That could never be a permanent deal, surely.
He signed a new contract in May, so there would be a significant transfer fee involved if.
Who gave him that contract? That's just cruel. It's all very cruel, isn't it? Like, is
I want to see him back. I really want to see him back, but it is what it is. Scott's totally wrong about Ramsdale versus Pope, but that's fine.
Before we move on from Ramsdale, I've got a few questions on this. So, what's the situation with Raya's transfer? Because obviously that's a loan. Is that an obligatory option to buy, or is it a option to buy?
It isn't, but word on the grapevine is it's more or less done. Even pre-December, that it was a £27 million fee that has been attached to him, and that's looking like it's going to be made permanent. Whether it's made permanent in January or at the end of the season, I'm not sure.
It does say here. I've just done some live research on air, and it does say it's an obligation, but I don't know if that hinges on appearances or it doesn't actually say that. But it's a $3 million upfront and $27 million obligation to buy.
Because the reason I ask is if I'm Aaron Ramsdale, that's what I'm interested in. Because if that's obligatory, I'm sat there going, okay, the boss has made his mind up. Whatever, we can go into all the nonsense of it all, but we've covered that, so we don't need to go into that today, right? He's made his mind up. I'm too good to be a number one, and I think he believes that, and I hope he does, because I think it's good for his career to believe that. He needs to leave then, if that's obligatory. If it's not obligatory, then you never know. 6 months is a long time in football. Arsenal's probably going to be the biggest club that he plays for. He may think, I might give this another 6 months, see if Ray falls apart. You never know with goalkeepers. Something can always happen. But if it's obligatory, for me, he has to leave.
Yeah. I can totally understand why he would leave. I just don't want to see it. I still rate him really highly, regardless of Scott's opinion. That's irrelevant on Arsenal goalkeepers.
Well, he's not going to play, though.
No.
This is what I was reading. David Seaman was saying the same thing, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I hate to see him go. I'm like, but he's not going to play. Like, what do you want him to do? Like,
yeah, I know. It's a tricky one. You know what? I still have a feeling he's going to be back in the side before the end of the season on a regular basis. But that's probably going with my heart over my head. I'm not 100% sure.
I don't think Arteta's got it in him to admit. I think if you do that, you're admitting you're wrong. And I think that's where he very much draws the line.
Yeah.
Well, yes, there is that. But, publicly, he always mentioned that about this 2 number ones, 2 goalkeepers thing. So he will always be able to fall back on that regardless. Yes, I know you're both shaking your head that. But that's what he will be able to fall back on. I don't believe him either. But that's what he will be able to fall back on.
So let's say I'm right and he's going to leave this January. Where does if it's not a loan to Newcastle, is there a permanent transfer there for him?
I think there would be a permanent transfer abroad, definitely. I think there's been notable interest from Italy, but I know he's just had a baby, and there was obviously the article in the Players Tribune at the beginning of the season about his partner having a miscarriage earlier on in last season. So I think that family element will hinder any abroad movement like that. I don't see him moving in January, other than a potential big money move to Newcastle. That's the only way I could see it in my head. I don't know.
I think that this whole situation with him has been a massive mismanagement because Arsenal signed him to a new contract. If the plan was to always ship him out, if Arteta looked at him and said, he's not for me for whatever reason, it would have made more sense to have him be the number one again this year, build on his value, and then you could have sold him for big money to a Premier League club or whoever, because the money that you would want for him after having just signed a new deal, not many foreign clubs will have. And you've now just devalued him. You've lowered the Ramsdale stock because he's now seeing the bench for a year. So you're not going to be able to command, a 50, 60 million pound fee for a guy who's a number 2. Even if he is on a big contract, I feel like it was a very nearsighted decision, this whole process with Raya Ramsdale. You may as well have him as number 1, and waited for the summer for whoever, even if Raya is your big choice, then sell Ramsdale and buy Raya and have some change left over. But I don't know.
I agree.
I don't understand.
It's been.
I was going to say, I literally can't think of a club domestically that he goes to permanently. I can't. The only club in my head that seemed, other than Newcastle, that he could play for this year, I think, is potentially on loan at Celtic. I can't, only because of the way Joe Hart's form is a little bit sketchy, and they may structure something to try and hold his value. I can't think of where he goes. The more I think about it, the more I think this is actually a bit of a problem.
Yeah, maybe Crystal Palace or someone like I can't remember who their number one is at the moment.
He would be an upgrade for Brighton. Nobody else in the top half, I think he would be a significant upgrade for.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping this doesn't happen anyway. Let's move on, Liam, to someone who we mentioned in the first section, Ivan Toney. Now, this is a player who he's one of the only players who's gotten better the less he's played. It seems his value's gone up. The fact that he's missing 9 months through his suspension, and we've spoken about that, but he's been linked with the big move, and Arsenal the front runners, it seems. I think Tottenham are in there as well. I'm sure there'll be other clubs mentioned if he's available. Man United even, maybe looking for another one, but we're looking around the 90 to 100 million mark here for someone who hasn't kicked a ball for almost a year. So, does he move? I think that the word on the street is that he's looking for a move in January. His ban will be up at middle of Feb, I think. Is that right?
Yeah.
So he will be available for the majority of the second half of the season. What do you see happening here? Or where do you think he should go? Or what? I'm a bit perplexed.
I think there's layers to this. So firstly is, does he want to go? Probably yes. Do Brentford want to sell him? Probably yes. I think that is the Brentford model. He's well past the age of what you call maximum value now. He's not a young player by any stretch of the imagination. Yeah. Younger than me, but I'm not a professional footballer. But so he's past the point of maximum value, and you're quite right with everything that you said about the way the cards have landed have meant that his value seems to be higher with this period. Absence has made the heart grow fonder across the Premier League. For someone who, to be fair, was scoring goals up until that ban. He was probably in the form of his life going into that ban.
Yeah.
So that probably helps the situation. Is he going for 90 to 100 million? I mean, what do you guys think? I think absolutely not.
No.
I would be very surprised.
Yeah, I don't. There's only even in normal circumstances, even if he just come off, even if he was still scoring goals up to this point and he hadn't had the ban, there's only a very small number of clubs who are paying that sort of money anyway. Man City's, maybe Man United, Chelsea will probably do it. That and Real Madrid. There's 4 clubs who are going to be throwing that kind of money around, and that's kind of it. So I suspect this £100 million figure is either a bit of a punt from Brentford to see if anyone is desperate enough to take the bait, which I don't think they are. I think it's more of a delay tactic of give us another 6 months, help us stay in the league one more year, give us 10 goals between now and May, and we'll see you out in the summer. I think it's more of a deterrent than an actual asking price.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's not a bad way to look at it. But if the player wants to move, I don't think Brentford can stand firm at 100 million.
I don't think Brentford want to keep him, by the way. I think Brentford are very interested in selling. I think £100 is like a starting, I would call that a starting bid. I think he goes potentially for around I think anything between 50 and 65 million. I know his age, I know it's domestic, but we're talking goals here, guys.
27? He's still not. He'll be 28 in March, so he's still not an old player. He's still, if you signed him now on a 4-year deal,
too old for Chelsea.
It's resale value though, isn't it? Loads of clubs will not buy up anyone over the age of 24 because of resale. They're concerned about resale value. So essentially, we're now talking. So now we're talking about the clubs that could maybe go for him. You basically talk about clubs that need goals and aren't concerned about resale value. So who do we think those clubs are?
Are we looking one right in the face here at me at Arsenal?
Probably. I mean, I think the best fits for him are Arsenal or Chelsea, in my opinion. Chelsea are desperate for a centre forward who can score goals consistently. We are starting to get more goals from other areas of the pitch, which is nice. We've already pretty much scored as many goals as we did last season already, which is just like being the nicest guy in prison. It's not exactly an achievement, but so we're desperate for goals, and I think for the right player, we're in a situation where we need somebody to come in and help us get into European football, because otherwise our whole long-term plan is up shit creek effectively. So I think we could be tempted by not having that resale value for the return of 15, 20 goals consistently for 3 or 4 years, and then we sort of take the hit on that, because we need the immediate results more than the future sale fee. We've got enough kids who we can sell for massive profit. We can probably take the hit on a couple. So I actually think Chelsea would be interested, and I think they should be. I think he's a brilliant player, and I think he'd do very well in Pochettino's alleged system that he likes to claim it is. I'm still not convinced he's got one. But
I agree, but I just can't see Chelsea going buying someone who's going to be 28 by the end of the season. I think that's going to be the main stumbling block. It doesn't fit into their model, or whether it does fit into their playing style. He does, I would say. But Liam, you take it from here, mate.
Yeah, I can see this happening, and I'll tell you why, because it actually makes sense. Because one of Chelsea's biggest issues right now is almost the pressure on Nicholas Jackson to deliver. Now, what you get all of a sudden, especially with Nkunku back in the picture, you get a established number 9 with Nkunku, who is a marauder in 10, if you will. And it all of a sudden kind of makes sense with Nicholas Jackson as the understudy, getting 15, 20 minutes, playing in cup games, with less pressure to be the main man, allowed to develop. It almost makes too much sense for it to happen, really.
Yeah, I agree. And that's probably what Nicholas Jackson that's what he should have always been. And maybe that was the intention, but we just didn't, the right opportunity wasn't there. Maybe Tony would have been that guy and he just wasn't available. Victor Osimhen was priced obscenely high, I think 150 million quid Napoli wanted. So perhaps that was always the case. And yeah, he's Nicholas Jackson's 22, only been, I think it's his third full professional season. So yeah, you're right. The pressure on him is massive. And I think what Martin said about the age thing, that he doesn't fit our most recent profile. But don't forget, when Todd Bowley first came in, his signings were Raheem Sterling, Kalidou Koulibaly, were his 2 main signings, established, experienced players. So this ownership they've shown that they're not afraid to change tact if it doesn't work. So they will, whether they get it right or not is another question. But if they see that something, that they're not afraid of changing it if they need to. And I think they will. I hope cooler heads prevail and they don't just keep going gung-ho buying Brazilian teenagers playing in favelas. Like we need. I'm all for stockpiling for the future, but we need to worry about the now. And I think you're right, Liam. I think Tony to Chelsea makes too much sense for it not to at least be talked about.
Before we move on from Tony, though, Scott, Martin, why wouldn't Arsenal want Tony?
I don't know. Look, we all know in this group, Luke's been a big champion of Tony to Arsenal for a while, but I've just never been able to see it. I don't know if it's his perceived character, whether he seems like someone who would fit in, whether Arteta fancies that style of striker. I mean, I've fancied a change up in the style of striker as an option, but is there someone out there who you don't have to spend, 65 to 85 million pound on, who can fit into the squad as a whole? Whereas if you buy Tony, he's coming in as the main guy. Do I rate him higher than Gabriel Jesus? No, not really. I think our team is based on Jesus being fit and link-up play. I know the goals are pretty dry right now. Maybe it'll work. Look, and like I said, if he does come, I'd be happy and get behind him. I just don't see it, and I don't see the fit. But if he is available, he should be considered at least.
Here's a question, and I'm sorry if I've completely put you on the spot and your knowledge of the French league isn't exceptional, mine, but how's Balogun getting on?
All of this season. He had a fantastic season with Reims. I'm not sure how you say it.
Reims, yeah.
The young English manager. Yeah. Will Still, that's it. He had a fantastic season. I think he was second only to Mbappe last season. But this season, I think he's on 3 or 4. I've been keeping tabs on him just through various reports. And the fans like him, but the goals just aren't there as much. Don't know whether that's getting used to the lifestyle again or, different areas at Monaco now. So I don't know. Again,
goals,
I think
there
you go. His value was too high to keep him. That was the perfect example of a kid, get him loaned out, get a big transfer fee. I think it was 40 million we got for him. You can't. It's so hard to turn that down when in a world where FFP has got everyone running scared.
No, I agree. It's good business all around. There's more curiosity than anything else to see how he's getting on, really. Because obviously, because he's not an Arsenal player anymore. From peripheries, the interest, I've not seen anything about him now, but I had no idea how he's getting on.
I did fancy a world where we kept him and sold Nketiah for the same money. Because I think Balogun offers us different options than Nketiah gives us. I think Nketiah is too similar to Jesus, a little bit more on the back foot where Jesus will come forward, but Balogun is more of a target man, can hold it up better. He's a different option. You can always put him alongside Jesus as well. So, but it is what it is. You get a young homegrown talent. You've got to do something with that. So we don't know where Tony's going to end up, but I think we're all voting that he is going to move somewhere this window, and hopefully he does, and he hits the ground running again, because it's a long time without football, especially that in your mid to late 20s. Those are your peak years, so fingers crossed. Let's have a look around the rest of the table. Liverpool currently top of the league. Are they in the market? We've got Salah going off to AFCON, Endo going off to the Asia Cup. Is there anyone that they're linked with?
Yes. I did not link with anyone now. I think Liverpool probably spent more than they wanted to spend in the summer, because Henderson and Fabinho left, and I don't think they actually planned for that. So, they are in the market for a certain someone who became available to speak to non-domestic French clubs, any clubs that's not based in France today, and that's Kylian Mbappe. They are very much at the table trying to convince Kylian that his future lies away from PSG. So I think that's where Liverpool's focus is going to be pretty much from now until Mbappe makes a decision.
I would be stunned if he went to Liverpool. There's only Real Madrid, as far as I can see, for Mbappe.
It's those two. Mm-hmm. It's those two. He apparently is keen on the idea of another club before Real. That has always been his preferred idea. And Liverpool under Klopp, I think it's the idea of playing under Klopp particularly as a front, because he plays the front three, is of interest to Mbappe. But obviously, I agree with you that Real Madrid seems more likely for a million and one different reasons. However, I think Liverpool are at least at the table to have a chat with him.
It's interesting that about his go somewhere, then go to Madrid, because I think he's left it too late in his career. I think he's maybe wasted 1 or 2 seasons that he shouldn't have done with PSG, and he's now 25, going on 26, which is crazy. I still think of him as a lot younger than that. But if he goes to Liverpool, they're going to want at least 3 years out of him. And can't see Real Madrid going for a 28, 29-year-old Kylian Mbappe. So I think the clock on that Madrid move is ticking. And it also depends on Madrid's plans for Haaland, I think. Because I think that was always the plan, that he would use City as a bit of a stepping stone and then go to Madrid after that. And there was talks of certain clauses being in his contract and all this. Whether that was true or not, I don't know. But yeah, I think it's an interesting one. I can see a world where Madrid get them both, because that's just what they do. But Mbappe doesn't want to be a striker. He said that several times. So he would go out left, and that would mean replacing Vinicius. And would Real Madrid do that? I can't see a world where they do that, because he's Madrid's boy. So interesting one. I think he may have the ship could have sailed on that. I think it's a tricky position for him, and I think he may have left it a bit late.
I am convinced that that's done already. Now, whether or not Klopp gets to have a chat with him and turn his mind, I'm not sure. But in my mind, he's already at Madrid in everything other than shirt and number on the back. I don't know if Liverpool have been linked with anyone else. Also, he went through that big contract thing in the summer, didn't he? And
Oh, it's every year.
He has only got 6 months left on his contract, so I can't see.
To be fair, he's a free transfer now, isn't he?
I can't see.
Today is the big day.
I can't see anyone paying up. So, an interesting one. Obviously, I think we'll wait for the summer and the big LeBron style reveal.
Just before we move on, Scott makes an interesting point with Haaland. The rumors I read was that clause is this summer about Haaland to Real Madrid, and so it all to play for, really, for the mega transfers in the summer.
Well, technically, they get Mbappe on a free, so they don't have to worry about that style at the end of it.
Imagine the signing on fee.
Oh God, it'd be obscene. It'd be absolutely outrageous.
While we're speaking about Haaland, Man City have stuttered a bit. Is there anyone who you think will be signing in January? Is there any targets that you think they'll need? I know they've picked up another young Argentinian lad, but he's going to stay over there for a while. Other than that, are they going to move? They bolstered the midfield a bit in the summer with Nunez and Kovacic. I don't know what else to say.
I think the problem with City is whenever they sign someone, no one's ever heard of them before. Usually, a lot of their biggest and best players, it's never the biggest name of the summer. Usually, it's not even usually the biggest financial deal. I think only Grealish was the time they spent the most of anyone on a player. So they're a bit tricky one to predict. Their record for signings coming in and absolutely hitting the ground running and smashing it has been excellent. And half the time, they're not really the obvious choice. The big superstar that you think of. They seem to find players who are maybe just about there. And like Ruben Diaz, I'd never heard of him before. He comes in and he starts tearing it up. He's on fraud watch for me at the moment, but he's certainly had a very good career with them so far. So I think they're a bit hard to predict, Man City. And still think they need to replace Gundogan. They've still not done that. And they've still not properly replaced Riyad Mahrez. So I could see them looking at those areas.
Liam, with De Bruyne coming back, do you think they'll make a move? We don't have to stick around on City too long. I just can't. There's nothing I can see.
Not in the midfield area. And an interesting position, I think, for Man City, a problem area, is left back.
Yeah, they've had Vardy there.
They've had Vardy there. They've had Rico Lewis there. They've had Ake there. And they've tried a number of different things, really. And it's kind of made John Stones surplus to requirements, because then they've had to use Kyle Walker as a fixed right back on that side to compensate. And that was very much the developments and the improvements that they made last year that they've had to move aside. So I wonder whether they'll look at left back as a problem area. Now, who they'll go for, I've got no idea, by the way. Absolutely no idea.
I think you're right on that, because Gvardiol suffered the same problem Colwell's had. Colwell's been pushed out to left back, and he's looked shaky because that's just not what he does. And I think Gvardiol's having the same issue. I've seen people comment, Gvardiol's not been the signing that they hoped for, and he came in for big money, but he is out of position. He's basically just a left-footed centre half. Said, right, go out there for a bit while we don't have anyone. I think somebody who could come back on the radar, depending on how he recovers from injury, is Brentford's left back, which is
Rico Henry.
That was it. I nearly said Rico Lewis, but that's not him. That's somebody else. Rico Henry. He was in great form. I think injury came at a really, really bad time for him and Brentford. Very early on in the season, I think just before the first England squad, and he was probably on the cusp of getting called up, and he would fit that bill. I think he's 25, English, kind, quick, powerful. I feel like he could be someone that they'd look at, but his injury was quite serious, so could have. Yeah,
and you also can't have two people called Rico in the same team, especially if they're English. That's just weird.
Yeah, I know Anthony Robinson's been linked with a couple big moves, hasn't he, at Fulham? I think Liverpool were potentially interested in him, because I'm assuming they're concerned about Robertson long term there, and whether Tsimikas is up to those levels. So maybe City may look at that as an option, but he's a little bit more direct than maybe I think they'd be interested in.
Yeah,
personally, but we'll see. I'm making up a problem here. Pep might not even think left backs are needed in the future. I don't know, but if there's going to be an area, I think it's going to be that.
Scott, I'm going to fly through a couple of teams with you and just give me a few names, a few maybes, maybe yes or no's if they're going to move, if you think there's anything obviously glaring for January. Villa, obviously flying high.
Villa, I would touch nothing in that team right now. I think they've got a really well-balanced squad. They've got depth where they need it. And I wouldn't upset the apple cart. They're doing really well. I would assess it in the summer.
Liam, agree?
They need to keep players. Their situation changes if teams make a move on Douglas Luiz.
Big time, yeah.
Other than that, I'm with Scott. I wouldn't look to change too much.
Fair enough, Scott. Spurs, again, the team who've been hit quite heavily with injuries. Do they twist now?
Who fucking who? Fuck off. Arseholes. A striker. They're going to need to try and do some, replacing Harry Kane. That's not exactly the right word, but you need somebody who, Son's not getting any younger, and I know they moved him more centrally at the beginning of the season. I think a striker for them.
Fair enough. And we touched on Newcastle before, and I think they're running from FFP as well. But again, injuries. Is there anyone else other than Calvin Phillips you see bringing them?
Similar. No, I don't think anyone who's going to make a material difference that wouldn't cost them £1 billion. So no, I think there's not really much. I think because once they get a full strength squad back, they'll probably be all right, and that will start to happen as the months go on. So no, I don't think there's anybody that makes a great deal of sense for them.
It's all about twisting now, innit, to secure something for the end of the season. If you wait till midway through April for all your team to be fit, you've only got 5 matches left. So, yeah. Liam, Newcastle, you see anything happening?
Potentially, yeah. But they may look to get more cover in defence as well, because they have struggled with fitness issues in that area of the pitch. I think Lascelles and has even sort of re-emerged, and I completely forgot he was there, if I was being completely honest. But apparently he's still captain of the club when he plays. But yeah, they could look at loans. I think they're over-egging the financial fair play a little bit. I think they'll actually be not too bad with the numbers if they structure deals in the right way. I think they're over-egging that issue as if to make it look like they're all dead nice and playing by the rules.
1,000%, that's what they're doing. So, they're playing so nice with FFP when they're by far the richest club in the world. They're like, we don't want to do anything. Choose City's tactic. Get your left sock sponsored by some fake Saudi Arabian airplane company.
Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly.
Allegedly. Correct. Liam, I'm going to give you the honours while Luke's not here. Man United. We're going to touch next week on Jim Radcliffe's takeover. All that's now gone through. He's 25%, blah, blah, blah. What does Man United do? What do they address? Let's fix something.
Really, really good, really complex question, because theoretically I could name any position here Man United could improve, and you'd all agree, probably except Garnacho. Maybe Bruno Fernandes.
Yeah, agreed.
And so every position there is up for grabs. They obviously need to get upstairs sorted, which I understand is already kind of done. It's just a case of the building blocks falling into place, really. What will be interesting to see is if Dan Ashworth goes there from Newcastle.
Yeah.
That's the one to watch, really, whether that happens. But aside, we've talked to that to death, really, on the Man United episode, so I'm not going to go too much into what they need to do at the top. The key areas of the pitch they need to address is clearly centre-back. Johnny Evans starting for Manchester United is just completely unacceptable. Like, even he cannot believe that he's doing it. And when you hear him speak about it, he doesn't talk about it like it's a pleasant surprise that he's playing. As if it's to say, I wasn't sold this gig of being like, he's almost resents it.
I went there to get my coaching badges and now I'm starting.
Yeah, so centre back. Now, who do they get? I mean, we could talk all day on this. I wouldn't be surprised if they have a look at Lewis Dunk, something of that nature. They may well look abroad as well.
My God, Luke's pants just fell off when you mentioned that.
Yeah, so that's potentially what they'll do. Other areas where they really need improvement, they probably do need another centre midfielder, and they're not scared to go out and get someone on loan in that position either, as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happens again.
Calvin Phillips. So he should have gone in the first place.
Another shout.
Maybe. I think if they were looking at that might be permanent. They need to get Mason. Yeah, they need to get Mason Mount playing as well. That's a real starting point for them. Like,
you need a role for him.
Yeah, you spent how much on him? 60 million, was it, Scott?
60 million, yeah.
60 million, and you didn't have a plan for the guy. But even when Ten Hag talks about it, he says it was a good opportunity to get a good young English player at a good price. But that's not a strategy, is it? Like, no. That's like what I do when I see a star buy in Asda. Oh, that's good. I'll buy that. That's cheap, and I don't need it, and I never use it. So that thing. But the key thing they need in this window, because I think they are a little bit hamstrung by FFP, and it's going to be very hard to get transfers approved with two masters really at the moment while it gets the deal gets ratified by the Premier League.
Yeah.
But I think they could probably all agree on they need a centre-back urgently, so we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, like you said, I think every position's up for grabs there now at United. If they brought in a new goalkeeper, a new striker, a new left winger, I don't think anyone would turn their nose up and say, why we're doing that, yeah. So, I think we're right. I am anticipating movement. There's just nothing, other than the few players that we've mentioned. There's just nothing on anyone that's really standing out too much at the moment. Is there anyone else who either of you guys can think of who you think maybe on the move or maybe looking for a move or something? I know, like say, we've got the Euros coming up.
We're still on Man United or just in general?
In general.
A bit of a wild card name, fairly sort of new development, I think. And someone that I actually would love to see join Chelsea on a short-term deal. Karim Benzema apparently wants out of Saudi Arabia, isn't settling, doesn't like it, whatever it is, wants to get out of that deal early. I would look, if you are a club who needs goals, you've got although he's 35, 36, whatever he is, they don't come much more ready-made than Karim Benzema. Chelsea announced that they'd agreed a deal for him for 6 months or a year. If talking about Nicholas Jackson having someone to learn off, geez, that is insane. And I think Premier League clubs would be very, very attracted to that as a name and as someone who can get you instant results. So, not sure if you boys think that if there's anybody who he could slot into, probably Man United, actually. That's the sort of name they'd go for, but I'd be buzzing to see him at Chelsea, to be honest.
I think every top 6 club except City and Liverpool would be interested in that 6-month deal.
Yeah, I'd take Benzema for 6 months, definitely. Do you want to move to the bottom of the league? Is there anyone? I think we spoke about Luton earlier, Liam, but do you think getting Townsend on for the rest of the season and then maybe another couple like him?
Yeah, 100%. They've got quite a few loans, haven't they, Luton? A few Premier League loans, which was a something we're going to talk about in a future podcast.
Yeah.
Sort of whether that's fair or worthwhile. Maybe that is where they look at abroad with regards, because I think you've gone with so many domestic. I'm not exactly sure how many they've got. I'm not completely up to date on Luton, as Luton fans will.
They've got Lokonga. I know they've got Lokonga from us, so that's one. But yeah, I think
Chong as well, isn't it? They've got from United. So yeah, something along those lines. Add a little bit of steel. They're going to have to replace. Well, we don't want to obviously jump to conclusions on Lockyer, but it looks like Lockyer may not play for a certain period of time. I think we can safely say that.
No, I'm going to safely put out a public appeal. Tom Lockyer, please never ever play football again. Just do you and your family a favour. Do not play football again. Your heart does not want you to play. Your head might, but your heart doesn't. Give it up. Everyone will respect you for it. Become an advocate for CPR and anything you want to do. But please do not play football again. No one wants to see someone die on the pitch, and you've tried it twice. Just leave it alone, mate. That's my appeal for Tom Lockyer.
But obviously, from Luton's perspective, they'll need to replace their captain. So
yes,
we'll see what happens there.
I'm just trying to think. Everton, like I said, probably hamstrung with FFP. Dyche is doing okay. So anyone else down there, Sheffield United, will probably need to do something if they are going to stay around. They spent a bit at, obviously with Sander Berge. No, it wasn't Sander Berge. They got rid of him, but Hamer come in.
Yeah.
Cameron Archer as well.
Archer came in. So I think we're going to see some movement around there. Like say, if it's loans or whatever, there's got to be some movement. So I'm just trying to do any predictions for the rest of the window going forward. But I think we're all looking at Ivan Toney as the big one to move. Do you think United will go for Toney, Liam?
I think they'll definitely ask the question.
Yeah.
I wonder whether they'd be able to pull off a move of that nature with everything that's going on. It might be one that slips United by, which is very un-Man United-like when a transfer, because they make sure they get their man when it comes to something like that. Whether it, I'm thinking like Fred and Alexis Sanchez, they can often really, really push for those types of transfers. Sure. But I think with everything going on, I'd be surprised if they do a deal of that nature, but never say never.
And Liam, while we're here, last club, Bolton. How are we going to move? Is there anything potentially coming in? Anyone potentially going out? Over we mentioned Dion Charles, but is there anyone else on people's radar? And do you think they'll move for someone?
Yes. I don't think we'll do anything too drastic. We may look at a loan at centre-back because we've lost Gethin Jones to the Asia Cup. He's got called up with Australia. So they may look at a cover on that. And we're a bit light because George Johnston, our left centre-back, is out for the season. So we could do with a left-footed player there. So I think if a left-footed centre-back became available on loan, they may look at that. I also think we may look at right-back as a genuine option of potentially even paying a fee. We need another right-back. We've got Josh Dakers-Cogley, who has done very well, but the idea was that he would come in and compete for his position, that he wouldn't be established first name on the team sheet. Now, that's no discredit to him because he's done really well in the position, to be fair. He's been one of our better players, but the next player to him is Matheson, and that's quite a drop-off.
Yeah, still a young lad as well, isn't he?
Yeah, so that we need another right-back, but providing Dion Charles stays, I think that's all we would do.
Fair enough. Well, boys, that's full-time. We'll try out some new bits this year on the podcast. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us, lads. Appreciate it. If everyone enjoyed the episode, please give us a like and a share and subscribe. We really appreciate it. Thanks very much. You can find all our information at www.fixingfootballpodcast.com, and all our socials are on there as well. We're at Fixing Football on Twitter and at Fixing Football Podcast on everything else. So appreciate it, boys. Liam, Scott, Happy New Year, and thanks very much.
Yeah, Happy New Year, guys, and get well soon, Luke.
Absolutely. Cheers, guys. Catch you in a bit.